Well, Tommy John was a Major League Baseball pitcher for 26 seasons who suffered a potentially career-ending injury while playing for the LA Dodgers in the mid-'70s. But now he lends his name to the surgery that helped save his career.
Yeah, doctors Marc Pietropaoli and Calabrese with Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics are back to help us better understand the Tommy John surgery. Good morning, guys.
Morning. Good morning.
And Dr. Pietropaoli, the first thing I'd like to say is, this surgery seems to be more common these days in young athletes. And one of the reasons why we're talking about it is that you say maybe there's a way around it.
Well, I definitely, a lot of the stuff that we do here, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine orthopedic surgeon, so I do perform the surgery. And Carl is a doctor of physical therapy, so we see a lot of these injuries after the fact. But we really want to stress the point that a lot of these injuries that we see, specifically this injury to the ulnar collateral ligament, the UCL, that leads to Tommy John surgery, can oftentimes be prevented. Or if we get it early enough, we can prevent having to do the surgery, which I think is the most important thing.
So, Dr. Calabrese, give us some ideas of how it can be prevented. And, as parents, I've got two teenagers myself, who play sports. How do you go about preventing an injury like this?
Not specializing too early is probably one of the bigger things. Oftentimes, overhead athletes, they're going to continue to pitch, and they want to pitch or play. Fatigue and overuse increases the risk of injury significantly. So not specializing early, not pitching fatigue, and keeping the radar gun nowhere near the baseball field of our adolescents. It's probably the big three, I would say.
Yeah, and Dr. Pietropaoli, you sort of summed this up initially, but just to make sure our viewers are clear, this surgery is called Tommy John surgery, but it affects what it affects and why it happens.
Yeah, so it affects the most important ligament for a thrower is on the inner or the medial side of the elbow where the funny bone is, and it's called the ulnar collateral ligament. It's that green thing right over here. You can barely see it because it's very small, but it's very important. And every time a pitcher throws full speed, they exert enough force across that elbow to actually tear the ligament. However, as you can see from this model, there's a bunch of muscles, there's tendons, there's bones that all absorb some of that force. But like Carl was alluding to, if a pitcher or a player overuses it, they get fatigued. Those muscles, those tendons, they can't provide that protective force to the ligament, and then the ligament can get sprained. It can be a mild sprain, a little stretch, or it can be all the way up to a complete tear or rupture. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is that complete tear. If we can get it early enough or prevent it, we can avoid that Tommy John surgery, and that's Tommy John right behind us there.
All right, Dr. Calabrese, let's say that, somebody has to have their, have this surgery done. What is the success rate? What's the recovery rate, to, I guess, a full recovery for pitchers who undergo this kind of surgery?
Yeah, so if you go through the Tommy John surgery, it's usually about a year to recovery. About a third of them make it back to their previous level. A third of them actually are better, but we attribute that to doing a lot of the things with strength and conditioning and working on mechanics that a lot of these athletes and adolescents should be doing ahead of time. And then a third of them actually don't even make it back at all. So prevention's got to be the number one thing. If you can't, there's other options than just Tommy John as well that we do in the office.
Dr. Pietropaoli, why is this so concerning, and why is this happening to younger athletes?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I was fortunate enough to do my sports medicine fellowship with Dr. Andrews down in Birmingham, Alabama. And if you look, he's done the most of these reconstructions probably in the world right now, definitely on Major League Baseball players. When I was down there, about 11%, that was 1998, about 11% of the ulnar collateral ligament surgeries he did were on youth and adolescents. Fast forward to today, and it's now somewhere between 45 and 50%. And as Dr. Calabrese alluded to, it's because these kids are playing year round. They're specializing too early. There's not as many three-sport athletes anymore. They're not taking any time off to rest, which we really want them to take 2 or 3 months off, ideally, from throwing to let that arm rest. And they're pitching through pain. There's a lot of pressure to throw harder. And like Carl said, the radar gun, there's these tournaments and things that they go to, and they care more about throwing hard and pitching through the pain And that oftentimes leads to these injuries in a lot younger age groups.
So, Dr. Calabrese, it seems like education is key in terms of avoiding these, then knowing your options if you do have an injury. Tell us about this webinar that you have scheduled and who you're hoping takes part.
Yeah, so the webinar is going to take place next Wednesday. It's open to coaches, parents, athletic trainers, physical therapists, pretty much anyone that's interested in overhead athletes. But education is a vital piece of what we do here on all fronts, either, before surgery, post-surgery, or preventive surgery. So we're big on advocating prevention programs here. And that's kind of our main goal in what we do.
Okay, Steve, that webinar is next Wednesday, not 2 Wednesdays from now or not tonight, just to clear that up.
That was great.
That is fantastic.
On the 9th.
We're all on the same page. We're all on the same page.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Let me tell you, I'm going to go home and tell my 5-year-old not to throw so hard now.
Yeah.
Now that I've learned this, that's crazy. Yeah.
Well, don't 3 things. Don't throw with pain. Number 1. Number 2. Make sure that if you do have pain, you rest it. And what's the third thing, Carl, that you would say?
The third thing I would say, not trying to throw as hard as you can is a big thing. There's a strong correlation of trying to throw as hard as you can, actually increasing the rate of injury. So,
yeah. All right. I'm
going
to make Eddie watch this.
Yeah. Great advice.
Thank you,
doctors,
guys. Thank you
for coming on today.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate
thank you,
it.
guys.
And listen, if you're interested, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics presents the webinar, Tommy John Surgery. Are there other alternatives? It's happening Wednesday, June 9th at 7 p.m. You can visit victorysportsmedicine.com to register.